Hey, welcome to another episode of Huddle Up with Mark, the Fun Coach. I'm Mark Duncan. In this episode, I want to talk about the importance of having a comprehensive fundraising strategy. Now, I'm speaking about this in the context of current events, right? So it is February of 2025. There's been a lot of chatter on the federal level about funding for those organizations who receive federal funding that may be in jeopardy in some way, shape, or form. Now, I'm not here to talk about or lean into the politics of this at all. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is you as an organization, you as a nonprofit leader, making sure that you are prepared for whatever may transpire as a result of this potential threat of that funding either going away entirely or being reduced, whatever that may be. This is why a comprehensive fundraising strategy is so important. Now, what do I mean by that? Talking about leaning into all aspects of fundraising. There's bottom up fundraising and there's top down fundraising. The bottom up fundraising that many of you engage in is usually around things like events. You are engaged in fundraising that takes place on social media. Maybe it's direct mail campaigns, email campaigns, 24-hour giving campaigns, those kinds of things, mass solicitation efforts, events, and also, while this is not a bottom up, it's more of a top down, grants, right? And some of those grants that you are seeking and securing could be from private foundations, and they can also be from the government, whether it's federal, state, or local. Okay. And some of you may be pretty top heavy on the grant side, whether it's federal or whether it's public or private. You may be pretty heavy in terms of the how much revenue you're generating from that, right? And so, where are you there? And when you hear news like we've been hearing over the last week or so, are you prepared? What happens if that funding goes away? What are you going to do? Are you engaged in major gift fundraising, or as I call it, relationship fundraising? Do you have enough philanthropic revenue that if you lose any of that public funding, that you're going to be okay? And so I want to talk about that. I want to talk about the importance of having that comprehensive strategy. And I want to lean in a little bit on why many of you are not engaged in relationship fundraising, in that major gift space. You're doing everything else, right? You're doing events, you're doing grants, you're engaged in the 24-hour giving, you're doing online campaigns, you're doing direct mail, all of those efforts where you're casting the net pretty broadly. But are you taking advantage of that to convert those transactional givers into relational donors? Now, many of you want to engage in this, but somehow you have an allergic reaction to asking for money. I'm going to repeat that. You may have an allergic reaction to asking for money. And that allergic reaction stems from your past. In many of these videos, I will touch on things like your money story or your relationship with money. But I'm leaning in pretty hard on this today because it could be the very barrier that is keeping you from engaging in the most lucrative way to raise money, the most effective way to raise money. 70 to 75% of all giving comes from individuals, not foundations, not corporations, actual people. So why aren't you engaged in relationship funding. You may be doing individual giving on a transactional basis, but how can you convert those transactional givers into relational donors? And you do that by digging in and doing the research and finding out who among those individuals who have been giving to you, perhaps for 5 years or more, that have capacity. There are tools out there for that. One of the tools that I highly recommend is Windfall. Windfall is a fantastic wealth screening tool. Anybody that has worked with me, any of my clients who have worked with me, knows this. And about 90 to 95% of the people who work with me actually subscribe to Windfall. It's a fantastic tool. There are others out there that you can use. I encourage you to use something, but if you are going to use something, you can use Windfall. And right below this video should be a link for you to get a free wealth analytics report. And I'm going to give you my link. And even though you may not be a client of mine, if you subscribe to that, you will get a discount. I get nothing for that. I get nothing for saying this. That's just an aside. But it does help you identify who those people are. So now, if you know who those people are, why aren't you moving forward with building relationships with them? That'll lead to an ask. Well, here's why I think you may be reluctant and have an allergic reaction to asking for money. It's because of fear, right? You're afraid of hearing no, but also your own money story, your own personal relationship with money could very well be the thing that is standing in your way. It's the thing that's allowing you to overanalyze, to overthink, to overplan before you engage these individuals. Am I doing this the right way? Should I call them? Should I email them? All of these things. And all I'm saying to you is just got to take action. Just got to step up and do the work. Now, let's talk about your money story for a moment. I want you to think about your very first money memory. And if that means turning off this video, pausing this video, write it down. What is your first money memory? For many of you, it may be related to getting an allowance for the first time or overhearing your parents talking about money, perhaps in a way that wasn't pleasant. They could be arguing, or the conversation could be very tense. Maybe you've been to the store with your parents and you asked for something and they told you that you could not afford it. These messages from our past can be permanently imprinted on our psyche. And when that happens, we move through life not fully aware that our first money memory, which creates our money story, and how it can impact our ability to fundraise. So I want you to think about that. Think about what your first money memory is. And what is your money story that stems from that? How have you moved through life in your relationship with money? When you see a price tag on something in the grocery store, how do you react to that? When you're shopping for a house, you're shopping for a car, what are the things that you're feeling when you're going through that process? Is there anxiety associated with that? Is your self-talk talking to you about whether or not you can afford this, or telling you that you can't afford it? Or how am I going to pay for it? These are all things that live inside of us that we need to be mindful of when it comes to asking people with capacity for money. So here's what I'm going to suggest that you do. After you have identified your first money memory, I want you to look at your relationship with money. What has been your money story? Sort of write that down. Write down some notes and some sentences that describe your experience leading up until now. Childhood, adolescence, high school, college, all the way up to today. How would you define that? Then I want you to take a look at that. I want you to own it. I want you to look at that money story, and I want you to own it because it is yours. It is yours and yours alone. And after you own it, I want you to process it. Process how that has had an impact on your life, on the decisions that you've made, the home that you purchased, the job that you took, whatever that may be. I want you to process that. Journal about it. And I want you to take ownership of it, process it, take ownership of how it has impacted your life. And then, if necessary, I want you to grieve it. I want you to grieve what it has done to you and what you have allowed it to do to you throughout your life up until now. And what this is doing is it's helping you see your story and how it is your story and your story alone, and how it has impacted you and perhaps the decisions that you've made. And then finally, how it may be allowing you to project your story onto your donor. See, what you have to understand is that person that you are going to build a relationship with, make the case, make the ask, close the deal. When you make that ask, you're not asking you for money, you're asking them. And their story is not your story. And they may have a story similar to yours. They may have already gone through this, or they may not have a story that is similar to yours. Many people who have high capacity, their money story is very different. Their relationship with money is very different. They live in a space of allowing and uh, accepting and believing that money is always going to be there. And you can do that too. But when it comes to raising money for your organization, I want to help you get past and overcome this allergic reaction that you might have to asking for money. So, write down your first money memory. Write down some things that you remember that really create your money story. I want you to then own it, process it, grieve it, and then finally do not project it on the person who has not only the capacity to give, but is interested in helping the people that you serve. And you're the conduit for that. So you need to do some clearing so that you can be available to present the opportunity to those people who have capacity, so that you can secure those gifts that you need, so that you're not relying solely or predominantly on public grants. I truly hope this has been helpful to you. I know that this is perhaps tough to hear, but I think it's important because at the end of the day, as you know, this fundraising thing, it's not about the dollars. It's about what the dollars do for the people that you serve. I want to thank you, and I look forward to seeing you next time. If you would like to hop on a call with me, feel free to go to my website, thefundcoach.com, upper right-hand corner, green button, schedule a complimentary coaching session with me. You can also click that link below. And if you're also interested in learning about my Relationship Fundraising Academy, you can Click below to learn about that. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.